Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9 605 AM. It might be a little rainy this morning. Expect some light rain today, and maybe even a little bit later today. It looks like it might be raining a little bit. So stay safe out there. I do want to get to this morning. An ISU professor, Andrew Hartman, he wrote a book called Karl Marx in America, and I want to get to that. I also want to get to Scott Jennings calling out CNN's hypocrisy over the economy. Okay, he reminds them all of Joe Biden's recession, right? I remember spending an entire year trying to redefine the word recession. Do you guys remember Joe Biden's recession? Um, and they tried to redefine this word. So we're going to get to that. We're also going to get to the Democrat leader, Jasmine Crockett, demanding more illegal immigration because guess what? We done picking cotton. That's what she said. Quote, we done picking cotton. So we are going to import illegal immigrants to do our unskilled labor. Interesting. The Democrat Party in the 1800s wanted to do the same thing. It seems like there not as much has changed since the 1800s, huh? There, Jasmine. Jasmine Crockett demanding more illegal immigration because she doesn't want to go out there and do unskilled labor, and she doesn't think any Americans want to do unskilled labor. Okay. I'm going to get to all of it here. I do want to make a note of the publicly funded radio station and this headline. If you didn't need a reason to defund NPR, this should be your reason. Okay. They said, quote, conservative political activist Charlie Kirk drew crowds of hundreds and some counter demonstrators during this ISU stop of Charlie Kirk's. Okay. So number one, I'm going to play this clip here. This is Charlie Kirk, and this was omitted, obviously, from their pictures. They didn't take any pictures. NPR, publicly funded radio. This is your tax dollars going to this, okay? They didn't take any pictures of the Satanist, which was definitely the oddity. So one thing about news, at least what I was taught in journalism school, right? You want to report the oddities, things that don't make sense. And this was the thing that did not make sense on ISU's campus the day Charlie Kirk came to Illinois State University to have discussions with students. There was somebody dressed up as Satan and tried to put a curse as soon as, Charlie sat down with the microphone. He was the first speaker. And he tried to put a Latin curse. I interviewed the guy. I said, why are you here today? And he goes, I wanted to put a Latin curse on Charlie. I asked him to repeat it. He wouldn't. Well, when I asked him to repeat it, he said, well, you seem really nice. I don't want to accidentally curse you. And I said, it's all right. I'm protected by the blood of Jesus. And then he walked away. He also walked away after Charlie rebuked him. Take a listen to this.
Looks like we have a Satanist to begin. Yes. In the name of Jesus, I repudiate this unclean spirit. Was that your question? Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Not today, Satan. Not today at Illinois State University.
Okay, so that was Charlie Kirk. They didn't report at all about the counter-protesters, what they looked like, what they were chanting. There were some counter-protesters there who had been chanting free John Pork, free John Pork. They didn't report that. That was a major staple of the event. John Pork, WGLT did not report on that. And these are things that you should be reporting on. And it's an oddity. It's weird. And it was definitely the most, how do I say it, memorable of the event, most memorable thing of the event. So, yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't report on that. You also didn't report on the crowd size correctly. Did you not talk to officers or security? I talked to them. They estimated more than 1,000 at noon. That is what security officers told me. And that was at noon when the event started. Okay, so before the event even began, there was over 1,000 people, and then the event began and more people trickled in. So I would say it was closer to 3,000. Some people say 5,000. But yeah, to say hundreds, not accurate. Not accurate at all. So obviously, NPR, publicly funded radio, they wanted to leave their readers with the impression that not many people attended. They also did not take the correct pictures of the counter protesters. The majority of the counter protesters had signs that said "Free John Pork," and there was also a Satanist running around dressed in like a devil's head or goat garb. I don't know. It was weird. That's news. It's called oddity, and you're supposed to report on things that are odd. And the citizens don't need publicly paid journalists, okay, especially when their reporting is not factual and they leave things out on purpose. Like it seems like how do you not report that all of the counter protesters were chanting things like "Free John Pork"? John Pork is a fictitious character, by the way, totally unreal, and they were just shouting nonsensical just nonsensical chants. Okay, they were chanting just to be there. So they didn't even really oppose Charlie Kirk's presence. They just wanted to be a nuisance on campus. Okay, that's what should have been reported. I'm shocked that they didn't change this from hundreds to thousands, especially considering they got hammered online for it, considering the hands-off event. They said more than 1,000 showed up at the hands-off event, which maybe definitely more than 1,000. I don't know if it was more than 1,000. When I look at the pictures, I think it's like 800. It's close to 1,000. I would say that's more accurate to the hundreds. The hands-off event at the BCPA in downtown Wilmington over the weekend, I would say that's more accurate. Like, sure, you want to say more than 1,000, okay, but like obviously this event had way more people, so you have to also keep the headline at least more than 1,000, or if not, change it to thousands. You're inaccurately representing this. So another reason why we need to defund ISU, publicly funded radio, DEI discrimination. Okay, they continue to push that. The Trump administration needs to get on that. The DOE, not to mention the Civic Engagement Center, they're allegedly, and I can't wait for the DOE to get to the bottom of this, harvesting student data and giving it to left-leaning nonprofit organizations, Civic Nation, their sister organization, All In Democracy. Okay, they're giving over the student data, cross-referencing it with the voter rolls, and they're engaging in get out the vote election strategies. Okay, so that's a big no-no. FERPA, right? Protecting the information of students and not giving it to these left-leaning organizations. That's another reason why I would say defund ISU, if that's proven to be true through this complaint filed by the former GOP candidate, House candidate Desi Anderson. Number 700, why ISU should be defunded, why these public universities should be defunded. Another reason is because they've got professors like Andrew Hartman, who wrote this book, Karl Marx in America. Now, I spoke with the professor at the Charlie Kirk event. She totally disclosed this to me. She wouldn't tell me her name, but she said that she was a professor at ISU, and I saw her get into kind of a yelling match with the fella about Satanism and how it's a religion. Okay, obviously this Satanist was running around. He had a couple of friends with other t-shirts that had pentagrams on them, like the satanic star or whatever. So they got into kind of a yelling match, this ISU professor and some attendee at the Charlie Kirk rally. And they were yelling at each other about whether or not Satanism was an actual religion. He says, I'd imagine something like this went down, like, take off that garb. What's wrong with you? Why are you wearing satanic clothes? Why are you running around calling yourself Satan? What's wrong with you, right? I'd imagine the guy said something like that to the student. The ISU professor walked in or stepped in and said, freedom of religion, and then they started yelling about how Satanism is a religion. It's not, by the way. It's just people's uplifting the bad guy of Christianity, the villain of Christianity. So it's not a religion. It's like the opposite of Christianity. That's not its own religion. Okay. So it's not even freedom of religion. Like, you can't even really claim freedom of religion because it's really not even its own religion. It's just the opposite of Christianity. Anyway, so they start getting into a yelling match. At the end of the yelling match, the ISU professor says something like, Satanism is actually the better or the superior religion. And I'm just like, what? We've got ISU professors teaching our kids that Satanism is the superior religion. We've also got ISU professors talking about how Karl Marx was kind of a good guy. Okay. So this is reason number 2 for defunding NPR, the locally publicly funded radio station. They failed to challenge the premise of the book. Okay, so they wrote a cute, fluffy article about Karl Marx in America, written by Andrew Hartman. Karl Marx was not popular. Okay, let me dig into this a little bit. This history professor has gotten it so wrong. From the little that I've read of the book, I read like the first couple of chapters or whatever. From the little that I read of this book, it doesn't mention how Karl Marx was hated even by members of his own family. Okay. Andrew Hartman, a little bit about his book. I asked ChatGPT to summarize it for me, but I did read a little bit of it, and this is accurate. Okay. So Karl Marx in America examines the enduring influence of Karl Marx's ideas on American society, despite him never having visited the country. Hartman traces Marx's impact from the Civil War era through the Gilded Age and the Great Depression in the 1960s, highlighting how his theories addressed issues like corporate power, economic crisis, and social activism. The book argues that Marx's philosophies have transcended fringe intellectualism, becoming integral to mainstream discussions on inequality, labor, and power in contemporary America. Okay, so of the little that I've read, he's very careful. He does it in a very scholarly way. He doesn't outright promote Marxism. I want to be clear on that. It favors Marxism ideology, and he takes Marxism ideology seriously. And he, argues that it's influential, and it's often misunderstood and contested in America, and has been contested throughout American history. Rightfully so. Karl Marx is not somebody to be celebrated, much like Kwanzaa. Okay, we celebrate Kwanzaa. The left, they all are like, oh, happy Kwanzaa, and we have to recognize this as a legitimate holiday. No, he was a cult leader, and he sodomized women and burnt them with curling irons or with hot irons. Okay, he was a cult leader. The guy who created Kwanzaa. So Kwanzaa isn't a real holiday, and celebrating Kwanzaa means you're celebrating a cult leader who abused women and whipped them with power cords. Okay, I don't understand the left. Why they celebrate the worst of society? I don't get it. Nobody talks about how Karl Marx was hated by his own family. Of course, his views have been contested and misunderstood. No, we're understanding correctly. Karl Marx was a terrible guy. He had a bad relationship with his wife, Jenny, and his children due to financial struggles. He never wanted to go get a job and provide for his family. There was personal tensions, obviously, with the family. His kids hated him. His parents hated him even more. Why? Because guess what? This is the type of guy that is just the scum on the bottom, terrible human being. So after his dad died, his relationship with his mother got even worse. Okay, she didn't like him to begin with because he wouldn't get a job, which is so hilarious. His relationship with his mom got even worse because he bitterly wanted the money. Okay, the inheritance. He wanted her money, and she wouldn't give him the money because she this guy is a total loser. He won't get a stable career. And then after his dad died, he wanted the inheritance despite their disputes and despite this poor relationship, and he thought he was entitled to it. So he was a complete jackwagon, to sum it up. He also physically, and this is interesting about evil people, their lives, their relationships always are chaotic. And physically, the guy was not healthy. He had like barnacles all over his back. He was just a gross human being, and evil. So according to BL News, this professor is one of the reasons why students enter college as capitalists, and then they graduate and they come home, and you're like, why is my kid anti-American? Why did they come home with all of these weird beliefs? It's because their professors are forcing them to read their books about how Karl Marx, his ideas were misunderstood and they should be taken seriously, and they have such an amazing impact on contemporary America. Like, that's why your kid's coming home and is an anti-American. I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back. We're going to wrap that story up, and then I want to get to Scott Jennings actually calls out CNN here for their hypocrisy with the economy. And he reminds them of Joe Biden's economy. Remember, we were in a recession under Joe Biden. We're going to be right back with more next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Yeah, Satanism is not a religion. You can't change my mind on that, much like Kwanzaa is not a real holiday. Okay. So Satanism, and much like Karl Marx, is not somebody to be celebrated. You guys can't change my mind on any of these. Satanism is quite literally just the antithesis. It is the opposite of Christianity. So therefore, it is not protected by freedom of speech. I'm just going to be honest with you. It is the opposite. It's not its own religion. Okay, so it's not protected by freedom of religion, period. So you don't get to practice this religion. It's not a religion. It's the opposite of Christianity, and that's not a religion. You're just infringing on my rights as a Christian, walking around as a Satanist. But I mean, at the end of the day, I wasn't too bothered by it because I know Jesus. And just like Charlie Kirk said, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I was protected by the blood. I told Satan that. And yeah, he walked away. And I think it's interesting in both the conversation he had with Charlie and with me, as soon as you mentioned the name of Jesus, he walks away. It's very powerful, the name of Jesus. So you'd be shocked what the name can do. All right, we're going to get back to Scott Jennings calling these people out about recessions. He's calling out their hypocrisy. Donald Trump is president, and there's a lot of people who now are saying, there's a lot of people who are saying we're in like a recession or even a depression. CNN asked this on the program. They were like, are we facing a depression? These are the same people who tried to redefine the word recession when Joe Biden was president. So we're going to be right back with that. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. What's new, Cat? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat City's 92.9 CNN, forced to admit that Donald Trump is a soaring eagle, delivering his promises to Americans in a historic fashion. Yes, the majority of Americans believe that Donald Trump is doing exactly what he said he was going to do. GOP Senator, he's savages, just completely destroys AOC with the zinger after zinger after zinger. He declares that we need to launch an operation called Let Her Speak, because if you just let her speak, she's just going to say things that are just off the wall, and she's gonna hurt her chances really of becoming the president. Now, there has been polls. CNN did a poll. Who do you think the next leader of the Democrat Party is? AOC got 10%, Kamala Harris got 9%, Bernie Sanders got 8%, Hakeem Jeffries 6%, Barack Obama 4%, Jasmine Crockett 4%, Gavin Newsom 2%, Nancy Pelosi 2%, Chuck Schumer 2%, Tim Walz 1%. Like, what? So everybody's trying to fight to become the next Democratic leader, and I say we just let AOC run her mouth, and that's the best thing that could happen for the GOP, for the Republican Party, because I love this. John Kennedy, he says, she's the reason why we've got to put directions on a shampoo bottle. Yeah. Because she's so derpy, she needs to be told not to ingest shampoo. And I'm guessing the conditioner too. Get it? That's the joke John Kennedy did. All right. So we're going to get to that because I think it's hilarious. We are also going to get to Jasmine Crockett, of course, demanding more illegal immigration, importing illegal slave labor, because she doesn't want to do unskilled labor. She doesn't want she doesn't think Americans want to do unskilled labor, and she wants the slave labor to do it for her. These people are very racist. Nobody's more racist than a modern day liberal. Okay, so before we took the break, I was telling you about Andrew Hartman, WGLD, NPR. They didn't press or challenge the premise of the book. The premise of the book is really treating Marxist ideology, Karl Marx's ideas, as serious and as influential. That's what the book talks about, and it doesn't outright promote Marxism, but it definitely is favorable towards Marxism, and it says that, Marxism is always often contested or misunderstood throughout America, throughout American history. And look, folks, for good reason. We contest this for good reason. Karl Marx was a terrible guy. He had bad relationships with everybody because he was a real jackwagon, okay? Now, I want to be clear. According to BLN News, this professor is one reason why your kid comes home, your student, an ISU student, will come home and not be an American anymore, will be anti-American. And you wonder why your kid comes home from college. I remember I was taking a couple summer courses and they were just really deranged. And I was home during the summer, and I remember just bawling to my mom, saying that this is just so ridiculous. And I was just like crying because I couldn't understand why they were pushing this so hard. Karl Marx and Marxism. It was a class I was in over the summer. It was just terrible. And my mom was like, "Why'd you take this class?" And I go, "They lied to me." The title of the class was like something creative writing. I don't know what it was. And it was totally deceptive because it wound up being an entire class based on Marxism. And people wonder why I have these beliefs and ideology. It's because going to college freaked me out. It was straight up an indoctrination camp, and it was just so bad for my mental health. And like, they did everything they could to strip me of my ideology and belief system that I had going into college. So I want to get to FDR. He's often labeled as a socialist by critics due to his New Deal policies. His 4 terms in office led to, of course, the 22nd Amendment, which limits presidents to 2 terms. So yeah, socialism typically ends with, if you subscribe and if you are a proponent of Marxist ideas, you're a socialist communist, typically ends in, if you subscribe, or if you are identifying as a socialist, you don't want to leave office because you're an authoritarian fascist. And, I think this is interesting. BLN News puts it this way: when the Berlin Wall fell, which side did the East Germans run to? Hint, it wasn't East Germany, which was ruled by the Soviet Union at the time, okay? Socialism, communism, always bad. People flee from it. People who subscribe to it or are socialist leaders, they don't want to leave office. Hence FDR, he's been described as a socialist and criticized for his 4 terms in office. And we had to create the 22nd Amendment to keep socialists out of government for forever, right? It limits the president to 2 terms. Now, this is interesting. Your new Normal Township supervisor, Crystal Label, probably would love this professor's book. Why? Because I've got this post here from November 2020. She says, would somebody buy me a life-size cardboard cutout of Karl Marx? And then she links to a $49.95 cardboard cutout of Karl Marx. That is weird. And she is representing you not only at the Normal Township level, but also the McLean County level as a county board member. Absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So capitalism, it works when it's not hogtied by Illinois government, specifically picking winners and losers. Governor J.B. Pritzker giving tax breaks to his buddies, and BlackRock being the asset managers of the Secure Choice program, the retirement program. They're making a ton of money off of that. And Goshen, right? The tax breaks for Goshen. Capitalism works when it's fair to everyone, okay? And when you don't have communists like Governor J.B. Pritzker, quite literally giving communist, Chinese communist companies like Goshen, who have in their bylaws that they are to uphold all of the CCP doctrines, right? That, like, go check out Goshen's bylaws in there. This company, has come under fire for, of course, slave labor of the Uyghurs. They work with individuals who practice slave labor, other companies. So human rights atrocities all over the place. And Governor J.B. Pritzker gives them tax breaks for them to come here to Illinois. And, people don't want those jobs. This is why there's a high unemployment rate in Illinois, and there's a mass exodus. There's no good jobs because they're all BlackRock jobs and Goshen jobs, and people don't like that. Capitalism doesn't work when the government interferes with the process and picks winners and losers. For example, BlackRock is the chosen one, and he's going to give them all kinds of tax breaks and give them thank yous through being the asset managers of the Secure Choice Illinois program, the retirement program here. And he's nice to those companies, and that's going to cause a mass exodus of small landlords, mom and pops who are, wanting to get into the real estate game. They're going to leave because JB already picked his winner, and the winner is BlackRock. Other electric vehicle battery makers or electric vehicle makers, Rivian, right? And they do different things, but they'll leave. American companies will leave if you're going to favor Goshen. I know Rivian got a ton of tax credits as well, but, gas-powered vehicles, car manufacturers, Stellantis, for example, in Belvidere, Illinois, they left because Governor J.B. Pritzker has already decided, and they're not known. Stellantis isn't known for electric vehicles. They've got them. But Jeep, Dodge, they're not known for their electric vehicles. They want to make gas-powered vehicles. They're going to leave because JB has already picked his winner, electric vehicles. And he's going to give the tax subsidies to his friends and to preferred businesses. And that is not capitalism, okay? And it doesn't work. Clearly, because the proof is in the pudding here. High unemployment rate and mass exodus in Illinois. All right, I got to take a quick break. But now that Donald Trump is president, there seems to be a lot of people who have the exact opposite opinion than they did when people who controlled Joe Biden when they were president, okay? We know Joe Biden wasn't president, but now, for example, the left, they're all about free trade, they're all about the economy, they're all about the importance of the stock market, and it's just so hypocritical because remember when they were trying to change the definition of recession under Joe Biden, okay? And they were like, well, the stock market doesn't matter, Remember Joe Biden's recession, and they changed the definition of the word recession because there was a Democrat in the White House and orange man bad, right? They're going to, say, oh, the stock market's going down, the stock market's going down. Are we facing a depression? Okay, but like, why didn't you guys say this when Joe Biden was president? I don't get it. The hypocrisy is just so blatant. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Then it just doesn't work. Yeah, Marxism, great on paper, right? It just doesn't work. Yeah, Marxism, and like, what really bothers me more so about this is like the celebration of a guy that his life clearly didn't work out for him. Okay, there's people who definitely deserve celebration, or at least honor, and the validity of their ideas should be taken, or like their ideas should be taken seriously, because they have that's why Donald Trump is where he's at. That's why he's in the White House, because people look at Donald Trump. There's songs about him and about his life and about how successful he is. People listen to what Donald Trump has to say, especially when it comes to this tariff war, right? Where he's using tariffs as a tool to try to get companies to work here and to build here and to bring manufacturing back to America. People are listening to that idea. People like that idea, or subscribing to that idea, because Donald Trump is actually successful in life. Okay, his family. Okay, unlike Karl Marx, his family loves him, even though they're all from different baby mamas and different. I'm not saying Donald Trump is a perfect man, clearly not, but his life is success. When you look at Donald Trump's life, he's got golf courses, he's got hotels, he's got money, he's got all kinds of success, not only in the money area, but also in his family life, right? Despite all of his children being from divorced marriages, they all seem to really love him. Not one child of his, Ivanka a little bit, maybe like the black sheep of the family. And I just think it's because she's a mother and she's being mama bear, and she has stepped outside of, or away from politics to preserve her own family, right? But she still loves her dad, is hanging out with her dad. They're on Instagram all the time, they're on social media, they're taking pictures. From the outside looking in, it looks like and all family has their beef. I don't know, I'm not privy to the Trump family details, but at least publicly they all seem to get along and but that was not the case for Karl Marx. Karl Marx, everybody knew that Karl Marx was hated by members of his own family, his kids, his wife, his parents. And we have evidence that he was, like, how much more of a jackwagon can you be? You wanted the inheritance of your dad, and you got peeved off at your mom, and your relationship turned sour because she refused to give you the inheritance at the time you wanted it. And you were a jackwagon, like you were jobless, and she didn't like the fact that she was frustrated with Karl Marx not getting a job, and he was nasty. He looked gross. Donald Trump, best suits ever. Of course, people are going to listen to what he has to say and his ideas, because clearly his ideas have worked out for him. Karl Marx, his life sucked. And why would we listen to a guy whose life sucked and whose family hated him? I just don't get it. They've been misunderstood. Karl Marx's ideology has been misunderstood, as Andrew Hartman's book kind of puts it, and it's just like, give me a break. No, people decided that Karl Marx was a jackwagon, and whatever ideas he had were clearly not working out for him in his personal life. He was fat. He had barnacle, like quite literally, like blisters all over his back, because he was just so unhygienic. And he was the first liberal on mama's couch, didn't want to get a job. His family expressed frustrations with the fact that he refused to get a real job. So he's like the first Funyun eating like liberal. And that's why they idolize him, is because he has the lifestyle they want, and they have, and they want that lifestyle to be celebrated. And sorry, newsflash, we live in a world of, hey, being healthy is something to be celebrated. Having your family love you back is something to be celebrated. and trying to uplift those who don't have those kinds of staples in their life is not that's not something we should be doing. We should not be trying to normalize people like Karl Marx and his lifestyles. We should try to get where Donald Trump is at, through the private sector, built up all kinds of wealth, built up a huge family who loves him. Okay, I mean that's what everybody wants at the end of the day. They want the abundant life, and this just goes to show you it's all anti-biblical, right? Karl Marx is about the bare bones life, like the life that sucks, and having nothing and being happy. No, you should have the abundant life, and that should be something that's celebrated when you have many blessings in your life. Of course, people want blessings and the abundant life. Anyway, so I got on Karl Marx this morning. But we're going to get to Joe Biden and this recession and the changing of the definition. You guys remember this, right? I don't think I have to. I'll pull up the receipts here of them changing the definition, which I just find so crazy. Subscribe to the channel. We're back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9 News and Talk Bloomington Normal, and the stock market, and the economy. All of a sudden, they care about this stuff. The left and the media, I repeat myself, they're concerned about the economy, free trade, and the importance of the stock market all of a sudden. And they asked this question on CNN, are we facing depression? I love how he claps back, Scott Jennings here. Let's take a listen to this clip. Here we go.
We're not in a depression. I mean,
I didn't say we were.
I didn't say we were. We're not. We may not even be in a recession. Although I would point out the last time we went into a recession, we spent an entire year redefining the word recession because I guess a Democrat was in the White House. I think we're going to see how this plays out. I really do think these countries coming to the table and the Treasury Secretary engaging with Japan, I think you got to have to give it some time. That's what Donald Trump is counseling, and that's the way the Republicans are going to treat it. We're not in a depression. I mean,
yeah, just give them some time. Give them some time. I love how the left and the Democrats, they'll say to the media, you want to spread this baloney all around, spread this around, and then the media gleefully responds, sure, we'll spread this lie because we have no self-respect. Okay, so claiming a recession is a recession is yet another example of this. You guys remember what it was like. Let's take a trip back in time. It was really a remarkable time in history when the people who controlled Joe Biden were, in the White House, and the people who controlled Joe Biden administration. I don't even really want to say the Joe Biden administration. It's more like the puppeteers of Joe Biden. When they were in power, historically, 2 quarters of negative growth. That was the definition of recession. Okay, 2 quarters of negative GDP growth means America is in a recession. That's what it's always been, or at least that's what it meant. Before this crazy media that we've gotten, this no self-respect media, changed the definition of the word recession so that way Joe Biden wouldn't look so bad. Okay, so allegedly, according to Facebook and PolitiFact, the people who controlled Joe Biden did not change the definition of recession. Okay, so PolitiFact, if you look this up on Google, they're going to say, oh, Joe Biden didn't change the definition of recession. However, sometime before America hit its 2nd quarter of negative growth, and like I said, this has been the definition of recession pretty much every time since 1948. Okay, but since that, I think it was in July of 2022, I want to say, is when we hit our negative growth for the 2nd quarter. Somebody changed the definition right before we hit that negative growth in the 2nd quarter. It was, of course, reflected by big tech, the Wikipedia site. They changed the definition. It was obviously a Biden-approved, friendly definition of the word recession. Now, here is a quote, no global consensus on the definition of what recession is. Okay, so I've got all the receipts. You guys can find it on social media, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. I'll share it with you. Just, the definitions of what they looked like prior. Now, this was in July of 2022 when they changed the definition of recession. They changed it in July of 2022. So July 11th, right before the negative growth of the GDP for the second quarter, it says that it's defined as negative growth, negative economic growth for 2 consecutive quarters. Okay, this was July 11th, 2022. Fast forward to July 28th, 2022. It says, quote, there is no global consensus on the definition of a recession. Okay, so big tech, Wikipedia, they changed it, the definition, and then they locked it from ever being changed back to the original definition. Okay, so big tech, and don't forget this, they changed the definition, and the mainstream media repeated that definition. And in fact, they actually changed the word definition. Okay, so they went as far as to change the word, the definition of definition, the word definition. Okay, and they locked that from ever being changed as well on Wikipedia. So let's look at big tech Wikipedia. They changed the word definition. So everybody, they caught on. They were like, okay, you changed the definition of recession. So what does the left do? They changed the definition of the word definition. These people are so quick and kind of witty. I'm impressed, honestly. I forgot about this. It's been a couple of years, but the definition, or this is what they changed it to. A definition is a fluid statement of the meaning of a term, a word, a phrase, or another set of symbols. Okay, definition. So they said it's a fluid statement. That is not what the definition of the word definition used to be. Okay, it used to be like you couldn't change the definitions of things. Now they've said that, oh, it's a fluid statement on what a word means. Like, it's amazing what the left did. So the late night comics at the time in 2022, they even poked fun. The Stephen Colberts, they poked fun at these pathetic attempts to try to change the word, the meaning of the word recession. They changed the meaning of the word definition. And, as much as I can't stand the late night comics, okay, they went against the Democrat Party on this as well, okay? Though I guess in Stephen Colbert's defense, no one at the time thought that there was a chance in hell that Donald Trump would make an American comeback, right? So that's probably why they went up against the, Democratic Party at the time. They were like, oh, Donald Trump doesn't have a chance in hell of getting back into the White House. We're going to poke fun at the Democrat Party. We're going to poke fun at our friends. Had they known that Donald Trump was going to make it back into the White House, I bet Stephen Colbert would have had dancing vaccines on his show singing about how great Joe Biden's economy was and how the term recession doesn't actually mean recession anymore and that there's no global consensus. I could imagine the vaccines dancing, doing a little tap dance. No global consensus on the definition of recession, something like that. Okay. So I would never ask CNN and Democrats, I repeat myself, they're the same, to dial back the fear porn on this tariff thing. I've talked about tariffs, how they're going to be good, and why Donald Trump is doing it. And he's coming at it from both angles. They need more revenue because $2 trillion, we're looking down the barrel of a $2 trillion debt just this year. And what they're trying to do is get more revenue via the tariffs, and they're trying to spend less via Doge. I wouldn't expect them to dial back the fear porn. That's like, telling somebody not to breathe. The Democrats and the CNN, they need the fear porn. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button. Share this out with your friends. They want an instant economy, and that's not how it works. Yeah. The thing of it, and things are shaping up. Things are going to get better. We already saw eggs. Donald Trump brought the eggs down. You know, they were freaking out about the eggs. Notice how quiet they've gotten about the egg situation. They haven't reported on the egg prices yet. They're down. Okay, and Donald Trump did that by working with poultry farmers and by pulling back regulations on poultry farmers. Okay, so they address the egg prices. This isn't going to be an instant because we are dismantling the system. Okay, I think it's so interesting how liberals they're like, oh, the system. It's really when the system goes down, you guys start to freak out. How hypocritical is that? So the tariff thing. $2 trillion. That's what we're looking down the barrel of. $2 trillion of debt going into debt this year. So what Donald Trump is trying to do is he's trying to get more revenue via the tariffs. I need coffee. More revenue via the tariffs, and then he's also trying to cut the spending via Doge. Okay, so Doge, run by Elon Musk, they're trying to cut all this government spending and they're trying to save money so that way we stop going into debt. Okay, have you ever looked at the debt tracker? That's not sustainable, obviously. We all know that for America. And then not to mention the tariffs, they're going to create a U.S. economy where the jobs are going to be here and the manufacturing is going to be here. And the art of the deal. I mean, it's already at work. I'm going to be right back. Go ahead and smash that like button. We're going to be back. We're going to wrap up this story about the recession. And then we're going to get to Jasmine Crockett saying that she wants to import illegal immigration so that way they can pick cotton. Anyway, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, you won't want to miss it. CNN, they are forced to admit that Donald Trump is a soaring eagle, delivering on his promises to Americans in a historic fashion. So CNN actually admits this with their mouths. GOP senator completely destroys AOC, zinger after zinger, declaring we need to launch an operation of, quote, let her speak. Just let her speak, and she's just gonna. I guess she's going to be the new Democratic leader. She's like winning in this poll that CNN did. Hey, who's going to be the next Democratic leader? AOC got 10%. Kamala Harris got 9%. Bernie Sanders, Hakeem Jeffries, Barack Obama, Jasmine Crockett, Gavin Newsom, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Tim Walz. They're all on this list. AOC is the winner, so I'm assuming that she's going to wind up being the Democrat leader. And I say, yay, because this woman says really silly things. So we're going to be back because Senator Kennedy completely nukes AOC with a brutal one-liner about shampoo bottles. We're going to be back with that. I do also want to talk about the White House press secretary. She's got bad news for you reporters who have pronouns in your bio. In 2025, it shows that they ignore facts. And she does not take questions from reporters or does not provide them comment if they have pronouns in their bio. So I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, smash that like button. Let's get to some of your comments. Good morning. I appreciate you being here. Satanism is not a religion, like I said. Is Islam a religion then? It's not Christianity, but how about Buddhism? So I say Satanism is not a religion because Satanism is just quite literally the opposite of Christianity. So they celebrate the villain within our own religion, which isn't a religion. It's just being the opposite of our religion. Okay, so that's it. It's not its own religion, Satanism. So I don't think that it's protected under freedom of religion. Islam. So Islam is a little bit different because they have doctrine, and it's not the opposite of Christianity. Buddhism is also not the opposite of Christianity because they're honoring Allah, which is their God. It's not the Judeo-Christian God. Islam is kind of like Old Testament, right? It talks about, Islam is actually the cousins, Muslim people. They're actually like cousins and like part of the family tree of the Jewish people. Okay, and there's this big split with Ishmael. He goes off, and there is a religion created from this ethnicity where they celebrate a separate God. This is the God of Allah. So it's monotheism still. Buddhism, I mean, it's a silly religion, protected though, because I don't know all of the staples of Buddhism. I'm going to be honest with you, but I know that they've got Buddha, and then they practice, certain doctrines within Buddhism, so like peace. They have, I think, reincarnation is a part of Buddhism. I'm not too sure. But there's different doctrines, okay? Satanism, there is no true doctrine. It's just opposite of Christianity, okay? So whatever they follow, it's the opposite of Christianity. That's what Satanism is. That's it. So, I mean, that's not its own religion. They didn't create any original doctrine or practices. It's just everything is the opposite of Christianity. So that's why I don't think Satanism is protected under the freedom of speech, because it's not even, or freedom of religion, because it's not really a religion. It's just the opposite of Christianity. So it's not its own religion. So I know that might be like shocking for some of you, but it's really not a religion. It's just the opposite of Christianity. So therefore, I don't think it should be protected. Antithesis of our Constitution. Yeah. So like I said, Islam, they've got their own. So the Quran, right? Satanism, they just go opposite of the Bible. Okay. They don't have their own doctrines. It's just everything that is the opposite of Christianity. Islam, they created their own doctrine. and Islam is actually, it's probably the closest, I would say, to being the opposite of Judaism and Christianity, because they created like their own god, Allah, and they wanted monotheism, but they didn't want to do anything that the Jews did because there's this family feud. And Islamic people look a lot like Jewish people, and there's a reason for that. Abraham's son, Abraham, had Ishmael with Hagar, and had Isaac with Sarah. Isaac is the chosen one, and through that lineage, through that son, comes the tribe of Judah, David, and ultimately Jesus. Okay, so there's that side, and then there's the Islamic side. So yeah, I mean, it's a religion in that they separated from Judaism, and then they created their own doctrine. I would say that those are protected under freedom of religion, just because Satanism is just straight up opposite of Christianity. All right. Let's get to a few other comments. FDR was a total socialist, government ran everything, created fake jobs. Yeah, that's where we're at right now. I would say Joe Biden's presidency was very, very close to FDR's. The only job growth that we saw under Joe Biden, or the people who were running Joe Biden, the only job growth that we saw were illegal aliens getting those jobs. So the subsidized poor, people who come to this country, spend everything that they've got to come to this country, and then they're poor here in this country, and then they're subsidized through this nonprofit sector, but also government jobs, public sector jobs. And that's not good for the economy because they aren't making anything. They're providing services to taxpayers whose money is taken away from them, and that doesn't really do anything for our economy. It's actually bad for our economy. Okay, so we need private sector jobs, manufacturing, making products, making real jobs. So none of this random PR firm marketing jobs where you're pencil pushing and shuffling papers around. We need to actually make things, sell things that people want. And that's how our economy is going to get better. And Donald Trump understands that, and he's taking steps towards that. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I so do appreciate you tuning in this morning. We've already covered a lot of ground this morning. We talked about how, remember in 2022 when they changed the word or the definition of the word recession because Joe Biden was in office? The left, that is, the Democrats, they changed the word. And all of a sudden they're freaking out about the economy, free trade, the importance of the stock market. But I guess they didn't seem to really care when Joe Biden was in office, because they went as far to change the definition of the word recession because there was a Democrat in the White House and they wanted Joe Biden to look good. So they wanted to change this definition. Look, just give Donald Trump some time. The tariffs are going to work. We need to get back. And in fact, you might not have to pay income taxes very, very, very soon. I hope that that's the case, because prior to, 1913, there were no income taxes. The reason why income taxes became a thing is because it used to be like 70-30. 30% of the revenue used to come through tariffs. 70% used to come from the U.S. taxpayer. Tariffs will alleviate some of the pain we have as taxpayers now. Fast forward to today, it's more like 99.1%. Now, with Donald Trump's tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, that's going to change things up. And it's going to be really good because we're going to get manufacturing jobs. Now, under Joe Biden's presidency, I think it was 5 million jobs he touted that he created. These are all public sector jobs, and they're not good for the economy because think about it. People in the public sector, they provide services, but these are services nobody really asked for. And these are services that we pay for, not of our own fruition and not of our own free will, but rather the money is taken from us by force. And then we have to pay for services we don't use. That's not good for our economy. So the tariffs, what this is going to do, and we've already seen it happen. That's what really bothers me about this. They're screaming at the sky. We've already seen 2,000 plus jobs come here with the company Stellantis, right? The tariffs, the threat of tariffs freaked them out enough to open up this Belvedere plant in Illinois, and that brought 2,000 plus jobs. No thanks to Governor J.B. Pritzker. No thanks to Joe Biden, because the Stellantis plant in Belvidere, Illinois shut down under their watch. I do want to get to Jasmine Crockett here. We are going to get to quite a few things this 7 o'clock hour. So go ahead, find me, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Try to keep up. We've got hot news. So I do want to get to Jasmine Crockett because just like the 1800 liberal or 1800 Democrats, she's racist. Okay. There's nothing more racist than a modern day liberal. Okay. The left will point fingers at you, slander you and half this country and call you racist. But really what they're doing is they're projecting their own insecurities because they know that they're the racist ones. And they're extremely bigoted. Jasmine Crockett, she confirmed what we all know, that Democrats want to import illegal slave labor, so that way they don't have to do unskilled work. Okay, liberals are lazy. Just take a look. We talked about Karl Marx earlier today. What's his name? Andrew, I don't know, the professor at ISU. He wrote this book, and I read a little bit of it. It's dumb. It doesn't outright. He's very careful not to outright promote communism or Karl Marx and Marxism. He's careful, but he says, oh, it's misunderstood and it's been contested in American history. And it's just, it's just a misunderstood ideology. And, Karl Marx, we know that he's a lazy liberal. Okay. So this is nothing new. Liberals, even back during Karl Marx's time, he was a liberal and a communist socialist, and he didn't want to work. He didn't want to work, and his own family hated him for it. His mom didn't give him the inheritance, and then it soured their relationship even more after his father died, because he was really bitter. He wanted that money. He thought he was entitled to it. And she said, look, no, you refuse to get a stable job and provide for your kids and Jenny. Jenny is his wife. So he was a terrible human being. And they're just lazy. Okay. This is why Democrats want to import the illegal immigration or illegal immigrants to do the unskilled labor that they don't want to do. And then I take great issue, and I'm very upset that Democrats will say with this whole tariff thing, what Donald Trump is trying to do is get manufacturing back here in America, because the public sector jobs, they don't do anything for the economy. When you manufacture here in America, there's a reason why, and I talked about this yesterday, McLean County saw a population increase compared to all the other counties. It's because it's a manufacturing powerhouse. You got Ferrera, Rivian, Bridgestone. There's so many other manufacturers in this area. And that's why it saw a population increase. It's because of the manufacturing. People like those jobs. People see the work done. They know they're contributing to something. You can work with your hands. These are good blue-collar type jobs. And that does a lot of things for our economy. And, anyway, so they don't like the unskilled labor. They don't like working with their hands, the liberals. And Jasmine Crockett, she claimed that the reason the United States needs to import undocumented people, these people from other countries, is because Americans are, quote, done picking cotton. Let's take a listen to this. Here we go.
So I had to go around the country and educate people about what immigrants do for this country, or the fact that we are a country of immigrants.
Right.
The fact is, ain't none of y'all trying to go and farm right now. Okay, so I'm lying. Raise your hands. You're not. We done picking cotton.
Whoa.
We are. You can't pay us enough to find a plantation.
Okay, so this is Jasmine Crockett, and I don't think people in the, you could hear, nobody was applauding. Everybody was, kind of chuckling nervously. The audience couldn't get behind that because clearly this is racism, okay? And somebody should probably tell her that throwing a tantrum and screaming and acting like a buffoon is not going to do anything for your for your argument, factually, morally, logically, none of it, okay? So just because you're screaming, in these screaming bits, they're just kind of getting old, Jasmine. They're really just kind of getting old, and it's just giving me a headache, to be honest with you, and I think it's giving you a headache too. Additionally, does anybody, hate it when people talk in double negatives? I like the grammar. I am total grammar freak. I like when people use good grammar. And She's just incorrect. Okay, she's using double negatives. She's grammatically incorrect, and it's not cute. Okay, so she goes, some of y'all are trying to pick. Really, what she's saying with the double negatives here, she's saying that some of y'all are trying to pick cotton because she uses a double negative, but really she means none. None of y'all are picking cotton. Not. She used a double negative here, so. Yeah, I feel like you gotta at least have basic second grade grammar requirements. You gotta meet those requirements before you run for office. Does anybody else agree with me? Find me on YouTube and comment below. Do you agree that our representation has to have at least basic second grade grammar? Okay, so nonetheless, this is the real scandal here is that this is blatantly racist. What group of people does she believe must be imported in order to pick her cotton? Are they of one nationality? Are they of several nationalities? That's unclear. But she's advocating that we import a group of second-class citizens for cheap labor, and that's something that should never be condoned. If we were to open up manufacturing jobs, if we were to get more jobs here in the United States, manual labor jobs, we would fill them. Americans would fill them. We've done it before. We'll do it again. People want those jobs. Surprisingly, the only people who don't want those jobs are the fringy left, like the Karl Marxes of the world, who want to be lazy and not actually work. So since Crockett is the Democrats' rising star, we can confirm that the left has never stopped importing people to pick cotton. Okay, the Democrats, they are the same people from the 1800s when they were forcing imported people back then. Back then it was the black slaves, right, to pick cotton. And the Republican Party was fighting them then, and we're fighting them now. Okay, so I got to take a quick break. I do want to get to CNN. Forced to admit Donald Trump is a soaring eagle, delivering on his promises, to the American people in a historic fashion. A majority of Americans say, yes, this is exactly what Donald Trump promised. I do want to get to John Kennedy. He completely just zinger with AOC. Jasmine Crockett, she's on this list. Where, the Democrat leader, who's going to be the Democrat leader, she got 4%. AOC got 10% in the CNN poll. Who do you think the leader of the Democrat Party is? So people think that AOC is actually the leader. And then next to AOC would be Kamala Harris. Jasmine Crockett got 4%. So maybe it's because she screams. And somebody should really tell her that does nothing for your argument factually, morally, or logically. And it's probably because she says very racist things like that. She wants to import a group of second-class citizens to pick her cotton. Anyway, so AOC, she gets just totally destroyed by John Kennedy, the senator. I also want to get to White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She talks about how she doesn't take, and I wouldn't either if I was a press secretary. Heck no, I'm not going to listen to reporters who happen to have pronouns in their bios. Anybody who sends me an email with a pronoun in their bio, I instantly get nauseous. Like, clearly you don't have any regard for facts. She said that that's why she doesn't talk with reporters who have pronouns in their bio. She goes, instantly, I don't give them a quote. I don't give them comment because it shows that they completely ignore the facts. And I don't want to give, they're not going to tell the story factually because they've got pronouns in their bio. So we're going to get to all of that here on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to come back. We're going to be talking about Harry Enton. He's on CNN, and not only do many people argue that, Trump's second win here was definitely historical. A lot of people definitely don't argue with that. Okay. We all can recognize left, right, Republican, Democrat. We can all recognize that this was a historical win. And CNN's Harry Enton is admitting now that Donald Trump is crushing it and beating everybody's expectations. So, for those of you who predicted Trump would come in like a lame duck, that couldn't be further from the truth. Everybody is like, oh, he's going to come in and be a lame duck. That's couldn't be further from the truth. He's actually getting things done. I like Doge. I talked a lot yesterday about how Elon Musk, I'm not a fan of Elon Musk. I just distrust him. And I'm worried that Donald Trump is not going to hold these people accountable to Mark Zuckerberg's. Mark Zuckerberg going on Joe Rogan's podcast, trying to kiss butt with Donald Trump at the inauguration. They all sat there, and the big tech bros, they all sat there together. And Elon Musk is definitely a part of that camp. We know that. And the only concern that I have with Donald Trump's presidency is the escalation in the Middle East. I don't want to go to a war with Iran. I don't like the fact that he endorsed Lindsey Graham, of all people. Lindsey Graham wants to go to war so badly. He's like drooling over the fact that we could go to war with Iran, of course, because he makes money from the military-industrial complex. That's why he wants to go to war. I don't want to go to a war with Iran. I don't want there to be war in the Middle East. I hope he resolves these conflicts. I think he's doing better with the Russia-Ukraine conflict than he is with the Middle East. We also need to have a conversation about H-1B visa systems being abused by Meta, okay, and Facebook and big tech. These artificial intelligence data centers. We shouldn't be using the H-1B visa system to import cheap labor, because that's no better than the Democrats. The Democrats, as I just told you, Jasmine Crockett, sat there and said, yeah, well, we don't want to pick cotton anymore, so we're going to import a group of second-class citizens from various countries to do the work for us. And the Democrat Party is still pro-slave labor. And just as the Democrats shouldn't be doing it, people in the tech sphere shouldn't be doing it. So your Mark Zuckerbergs and whatnot. And I hope that he holds those guys accountable. There's still a lot of time left. There's 4 years of this administration. I say give him some time. He signed at least 111 executive orders, more than any other president has done in a single year. So we're gonna get to Harry N, because he is just soaring like an eagle. He is not a lame duck. Smash that like button and subscribe. Donald Trump is not a lame duck. Now, there are issues that I have with Donald Trump. I really hope that this carbon sequestration, there's a bill getting pushed through the House where they're going to take away this tax credit that companies receive for doing carbon sequestration. I hope that he gets that across the finish line. I forget what. He's a Republican, pro-Trump Republican. He introduced that legislation earlier this year. I hope that gets addressed, because the carbon sequestration, not a good idea. Not good for the environment, not good for your health, not good for our water supply, all of it. So I hope that Donald Trump gets that across the finish line, or at least, pro-Trump Republicans, they're going to get that across the finish line in the House and passed in the Senate later. That's one issue that I'm concerned about. But the two major issues that I'm really concerned about, the H-1B visa system that's being abused by tech bros. Who do I mean by tech bros? Jeff Bezos, your artificial intelligence data center type guys, these tech, the tech sphere. And Elon Musk is a part of that camp. Okay, and he has everything to gain from, the Fed is going to cut the interest rates. They're going to do all these new startups and things like that. So he's got everything to gain from it as well. He's a billionaire. I think he's a billionaire, and he wants to make even more money. And, I have no issue with that. But you can't be importing a group of second-class citizens to do the work at a cheap rate. Okay, we got to be giving these jobs to Americans, and I hope Donald Trump addresses the H-1B visa program and isn't going to turn a blind eye just because Elon Musk likes the H-1B visa system. Okay, so there's there's some issues there, and I hope Donald Trump addresses that. I also am worried about the Middle East. Things are escalating over there. He also endorsed Lindsey Graham, the South Carolina guy, where we know Lindsey Graham is just drooling, thinking about going to war with Iran because he's going to make tons of money. The military-industrial complex, the rhinos like Lindsey Graham and Nikki Haley, would benefit from a war in the Middle East, and they love war in the Middle East because they'll make a ton of money. Okay, so she sits on the board of, I think, Boeing. Nikki Haley does, and Honeywell and all of these people in the military-industrial complex. They want to go to war. They can make all kinds of things, and then they later provide contributions to these politicians for being favorable towards war. So Lindsey Graham, the endorsement there, that's kind of weird. I hope he addresses the Russia-Ukraine conflict. I think that's better. And Donald Trump is addressing that in a better way than he is the Middle East. I think things are escalating in the Middle East, and that's disappointing. I hope that we don't go to war with Iran. So there's some concerns. I wouldn't say that Donald Trump is absolutely killing it in every area. But Harry Enton would. He admitted that Donald Trump is crushing it and beating Harry Enton of CNN, by the way. He said that he's crushing it and beating everybody's expectations. Everybody predicted Donald Trump was going to come in and be a lame duck. Nope, he is a soaring eagle, according to Harry on CNN. Trump, he signed 111 executive orders, more than any other president has done in a single year. So while half the country despises the president of the United States and half love him, everyone can agree that this man, he is delivering on promises. The tariffs, great policy. He's delivering on what he promised with the tariffs. I hope we get rid of the income tax, and I think that that's what's going to wind up happening if we keep these tariffs and we go back to the 70-30 revenue stream, right? 70 with the U.S. taxpayer, 30 with the tariffs. Okay, that'd be great. So I want to play this. This is Harry Enton on CNN admitting with his mouth that Donald Trump is not a lame duck, but rather a soaring eagle.
I think there was this concern among some folks that Donald Trump would come in for a second term and kind of be a lame duck. He ain't no lame duck. If anything, he's a soaring eagle. What am I talking about here? Let's talk about Trump executive orders in 2025. He's already signed 111 so far. That is the most at this point in a presidency in at least 100 years. In fact, it's the most in any single year, and we're only in April, since Harry S. Truman in the early 1950s. The bottom line is whether you like Trump or you don't like him, you can't say that he's come in and not try to deliver on what he at least believes was his promises on the campaign trail, and he's doing so in historic fashion.
How are people reacting to and feel about Trump's approach?
Yeah, okay. So Trump's approach here, what are we talking about? Trump's approach to presidential power. I think the American people recognize what he's doing here is completely different. We're talking, get this, 86% of the American public believes that Trump's approach to presidential power is completely different from past presidents, compared to only 14% who believe it is in line with precedent. And we're talking about at least 79% of Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So again, you can agree or you can disagree with Donald Trump, but what you can't disagree with is that he's doing things very differently. I have used the Frank Sinatra quote before. He is doing it, quote unquote, my way. And that is what Donald Trump has done throughout both of his presidential terms. And he's certainly doing that, Kate Baldwin, in term number 2.
Yep. Term number 2. Like I said, there is a concern that I have. I actually spoke with the gentleman at the Charlie Kirk event. There's a concern that I have that, Elon Musk, it confuses the equation a little bit. I mean, remember when Donald Trump was an infamous quote where he goes, "I don't need your money. I don't want your money." And he goes, "Listen to all the donors booing out there." He goes, "It's because I won't take their money and I don't need it." So I'm concerned. I hope that he holds these tech bros accountable, like your Mark Zuckerbergs, people who are using H-1B visa systems. Elon Musk, he's been favorable of, or at least supportive of that system. We can't abuse that system. It is there for the top of the top. Okay, if we can't find the American to fill the job, we go to India or some other country where we get the doctor who can't do. Or we can't find an American who can do what the doctor can do in India. Okay. So I don't want to see Donald Trump ignore that. And I don't think he will. Time will tell. But what a difference, am I right, with this administration from the previous administration? That president took 577 vacation days, by the way. And well, we had one who decided to open up the border and let the bureaucrats run rampant and only grew jobs in the public sector. Whereas the other, he's giving the power back to the American people with the tariffs, with the manufacturing, trying to bring manufacturing back here, trying to create private sector jobs. And there's nothing more that the left despises than that, because like I said, they don't want to work. They're lazy. It goes back to Karl Marx. Karl Marx had such poor hygiene. The guy wouldn't even shower himself. He had like barnacles, like quite literally barnacles of what you would see on the bottom of a boat. He had those all over his back. He was a very unhygienic man and just a disgusting human being, really, quite frankly, just evil. And his own family couldn't stand him. His mother hated him, his wife, his kids, they all hated him. So it goes back to Democrats. They just want to be lazy, and they don't like that the American people are going to have these jobs, and we're going to do something with this country and actually be productive. They don't like that. So yeah, he actually admits it. Harriet on Facebook or on CNN, he actually admits that Donald Trump is a soaring eagle, and he's delivering, at least on what he believes he promised on the campaign trail. Now, I want to get to this. Despite this reality, the left lives in la la land. This is why Cory Booker refuses to admit what CNN had just admitted. They said that Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he is delivering, and he's doing it in an unprecedented way. I want to play this clip. Here we go.
One of the things that is a characteristic of yours is you acknowledge when you've made mistakes or when you change a course. And you've talked a little bit about that in terms of how you've approached nominees recently. And you made a point of saying that you've been imperfect in your long speech the other night. I'm sure you can't remember every moment. I was curious. I mean, when you got off the floor after 25 hours, after not eating, not drinking, not using the bathroom, what happened was it was your party, the entire Senate, I should say, moved forward on the nomination of Matt Whitaker as NATO ambassador, meaning no one used the power to put a hold on him. That's one example. Obviously, there's lots of power and lots of things happening in Washington. But have you had discussions over the last couple of days with leadership, with other colleagues, about the need to take more aggressive steps to block nominees?
Yeah, I get to serve in a body with a whole bunch of really incredible human beings who all have incredible lives. Literally, I get to sit in that back row, and in my back row is a literal astronaut, the guy that has been a fighter pilot and defied gravity, on the same row as somebody like Tammy Duckworth, who is literally has lost her legs in combat. These amazingly heroic, committed people who struggle with trying to find out what is the best way at this moment that America is calling on their leadership, what's the best way to serve. And all of us have tried things, stumbled, struggled, and tried to figure out how do we honor the traditions and really the quorum of the Senate, but yet at the same time show that we are fed up and want to fight. And so those discussions go on, and each individual senator has to make their decisions. But I'm proud of the 47 that I've been in, and I think all of us, including myself, know that what we've been doing is inadequate and we need to do more. And I think what you're seeing right now and what you're going to see over the coming weeks and months, you've talked about it a little bit, is a lot of people that are going to follow the leadership of our states, because we are seeing people who've worked 2 shifts and then are coming out to rallies. We have seen people who are carrying their children because there's no childcare available for them. They're carrying their children with them to rallies to speak up. And so in many ways, the people are leading right now. And I know that a lot of us are committed to being with them in that fight. And I'm excited about this moment. I could feel folks waking up. I could feel the energy. I can feel the wave growing. And it's not a Democratic wave or a blue wave. It's a wave of saying this president is toxic, chaotic, demeaning and degrading, and is hurting American people. And we're not going to stand for it.
Okay, lots to unpack there. That was Cory Booker, And, it's just totally disingenuous. People like him stood by, they were idle when the former administration, the Joe Biden administration, caused crisis after crisis after crisis for the American people. Okay, so while record inflation, the worst border crisis known to man, was not enough for Cory Booker to speak out, the people are no longer buying whatever crap he's selling. Okay, we're done, and we're seeing that Donald Trump is being historic in his moves here to deliver on what he promised. So the American people voted for this, and the sooner that the left realizes that, the better off everyone's going to be. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. I'll be right back. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Go ahead, smash that like button, share this out with your friends. Musk rules. He's like Trump. Yeah, I would say that he's a businessman just like Donald Trump. He wants to make billions and he wants to make even more billions, and it's impossible to do that when you're taxed into oblivion, okay? So the tax burden will be alleviated once we get these tariffs reintroduced, where we, include them as a part of our revenue. And really, they're more of a sale or more of a tactic to try to get the manufacturing jobs here, like I said. But Elon Musk rules. He's like Trump. He knows how to run a business. No business would ever survive running like a government, like the government. Yes, exactly. Now, here's where I am worried about Elon Musk. Now, number one, I just don't trust him because, and like Vivek Ramaswamy, I think I told you guys back when he was running in the primary, that it would be hard for me to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy. And the whole reason why I wouldn't vote for Vivek Ramaswamy, especially over Donald Trump, is because he's not a Christian. He talks about Hinduism being his religion, but then he also says that, America is a Judeo-Christian country and we should follow the values of Christianity here in this country, and the government should do that, but then also practices Hinduism. It shows me he has no true convictions or no true belief system, and then he's a little wishy-washy. Elon Musk, same thing. Atheist, says that he's a cultural Christian and that he believes Christian values should be used to govern. So he doesn't deny that, Elon Musk, but it just kind of freaks me out a little bit when you are self-proclaimed atheist, but then you also claim you have some type of conviction to Christianity. It's just odd. So maybe that's kind of blinding me a little bit as it pertains to Elon Musk. I'm not a big fan of him, probably just because of that reason. But also the H-1B visa systems. He's come out, publicly supported the H-1B visa systems. He's not against them. And a lot of these tech bros, people in big tech, they like the H-1B visa system. I think it's like 60% Indians who are in this. Really, they're importing this second-class citizen, this group of second-class citizens, to do cheaper work, okay, than the American citizen would. I'm all for these tech jobs, whatever, AI, whatever you want to do. And whatever you want to do is build these data centers, you want to harvest data, whatever. I'm all for it. The nuclear power plants, whatever. If you want to do that, that's fine. If they're American jobs, right? But we have to not speak out of both sides of our mouths here. And we have to be America first, first, always and forever, right? And that should extend to business owners, including Elon Musk. And I hope that Donald Trump holds them accountable, and I hope that we fix that H-1B visa system. If we do that, if we just address the problems with the H-1B visa system, and get it to a system to where, and yesterday I shared with you the guy, the tech leader, he actually disclosed to an undercover reporter, Mug Club undercover reporter, that he continues to keep his job because never will he ever have the power and influence that he has with discourse, communication, than he does right now as a tech leader for Meta. So that tells me that there's censorship going on. Mark Zuckerberg should be held accountable for that. And they're all butt kissing him right now, these tech bros, Silicon Valley. So I hope that we hold these people accountable, and I don't want them to benefit from the system that Donald Trump creates if they're not going to be America first. Okay. So that's a big thing with Donald Trump. But yes, I agree with Doge, the concept of Doge. Elon Musk heading up Doge. I mean, okay, he's a businessman. He knows how to do it. And he's doing it. Why? Because it's also going to benefit him. The interest rates are going to go down to startups. It's going to be good for his businesses and his tech ventures. Okay. So, yeah, maybe we should just judge him on his accomplishments. Yeah, Elon Musk has great accomplishments. Not despair. I don't like that he's supportive of the H-1B visa system. That's it. Woo! Hey, good morning, you're listening to Conservative Cat. Thursday, 7:41 a.m. Go ahead, find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Earlier in the show today, we talked about the ISU professor, Andrew Hartman. He's got a book out there. And of course, if you didn't need another reason to defund public radio, they didn't challenge the premise of the book at all. We talked a lot about Karl Marx today and how he's a lazy liberal. And this is why the liberals celebrate him, is because he was always kind of a jackwagon. His family hated him. He was unhygienic, had barnacles all over his back. His mom hated him because he thought he was entitled to daddy's money. Yeah, Karl Marx, not a good guy. Not somebody we should be celebrating, especially on our campuses and in our universities. And you wonder why your kids come home and they're totally different people from college. They'll come home and you're like, who is this person? I don't even know this person. She comes home vegan. And you're like, what? What do you mean you don't eat meat anymore? It's because of Andrew Hartman and the professors there. I told you earlier, a couple of days ago, we went to the Charlie Kirk event, and there was an ISU professor there. She told me she was an ISU professor. I asked her for her name. She wouldn't give it to me. I saw her get into a screaming match and tell somebody that Satanism is the superior religion or a better religion than Christianity. And I'm just like, okay, number one, Satanism isn't a religion. It's not protected by freedom of religion. Why? Because it's just the opposite of Christianity. They have no real doctrine. It's just, let's take the Bible and do everything the opposite of that. So that's not really a religion. Okay, it's just the opposite of Christianity. Unlike other religions, Buddhism, Islam, Hinduism, they have deities, they have practices, doctrine that they follow, and they've crafted religions. This is lazy. Just like that's the theme of today's show. Satanism is just lazy. They just take Christianity and then they do the opposite of it. That's it. We're gonna talk. I talked about Cory Booker before we took break. Cory Booker, he was out there and he was, saying that Donald Trump is bad for America and bad for Americans. And it's just like, look, man, where were you? You stood idly by when Joe Biden, under his administration, we saw the worst border crisis. We saw record inflation. Where were you when you didn't speak out then for the people? So we're not buying it anymore, Cory Booker. I do want to get to this. AOC, she looks like she's going to be the leader of the Democrat Party. So according to at least John Kennedy, that's kind of a good thing because we just need to let her speak. Operation Let Her Speak. So we know that Donald Trump had tremendous success as a businessman. We know, and I talked about Donald Trump's life actually earlier today, because you compare his life to Karl Marx. The reason why we should shut down Marxism and his ideology and his ideas is because look at his life. It kind of sucked. His family hated him. He looked terrible. Donald Trump, love him, hate him. His kids appear, at least publicly, to love him. And he looks like he's got quite the life, and has been successful. He's been a successful businessman. So it worked. Republicans had this reality show host, a successful businessman, become president. And now Democrats are kind of stepping outside of their comfort zone with their, how do I put this? Like with their stuffy politicians, your Barack Obamas, your, where they're pulling from, even Kamala Harris was the Attorney General, California. Okay. So they pull from their pool of politicians. So they're stepping outside of their comfort zone, and they're kind of going with social media influencer Representative AOC, even though her side gig here is Congresswoman. She's on Instagram, and her side hustle is like being a member of Congress. And she goes and she has these viral rants to entertain really both the left and the right. I find her very entertaining. She's hilarious. She says just some really off the wall stuff. But GOP Senator John Kennedy, he says that he's A-okay with letting AOC say whatever she wants because his concern is that Representative AOC is the leader of the Democratic Party, and if that's so, then this part is key. He says the reason why shampoo bottles have directions on them is because people like AOC, and we should just let her go. Operation Let Her Speak. Let's take a listen to this clip. He was on with Sean Hannity, who you can catch on Cities 92.9 later today at 2 o'clock. Take a listen.
What do you think of the new leadership, Jasmine, AOC, and Bernie?
I consider Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez to be the leader of the Democratic Party. She's entitled to her opinion. I'm entitled to mine. As I've said about her before, I think she's the reason there are directions on a shampoo bottle. And our plan for dealing
you didn't plan that out. We got to hurry.
Our plan for dealing with her is called Operation Let Her Speak.
What do you think of the new?
Let her speak, because she is just going to contribute to her own demise here as the Democratic leader, and I'm all for her letting her speak. So AOC, Kamala Harris, Bernie Sanders, Hakeem Jeffries, Barack Obama, Jasmine Crockett, Gavin Newsom, Chuck Schumer, Tim Walz, Nancy Pelosi. These guys are all being considered as the next leader of the Democrat Party. I've got to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap up this part of the show, and I'll be right back with more news ahead. Conservative Cat. AOC is worth $11 million. Yeah, she's a millionaire. Yesterday, we talked about AOC and how she took like a JetBlue flight, first class. Those range anywhere from a seat will range anywhere from like $1,000 to $1,200, something like that. And she, took the flight to a rally called Fight the Oligarchy. I have to be careful because she accidentally said fart the oligarchy. And now I want to say fart the oligarchy because I think it's hilarious. So she, got to this rally, a Bernie Sanders event. And she told everybody, down with the rich, down with the rich. Little do, these people in at the rally, the attendees, they probably didn't know that she, had just spent money on first class. And I think it's funny because the climate change activists, they hate first class because you can't fit. They're so hypocritical because some leftists say that, the seats are too small because the fat people, they can't fit in the seats on the plane. Okay, but then you'll have the climate activists who are also leftists. They'll say that first class is bad because you can't fit as many people on a plane, therefore more carbon emissions and more flights back and forth. You should, make the seats smaller and there shouldn't be first class. And like they don't know what they want. That's the point, is their ideology is all over the place. And like I said, if Democrats didn't have double standards, they wouldn't have standards at all. But so she's, getting on this flight and she, doesn't say a word to any of the voters. A lot of her constituents on the plane, they wanted to say hi and they were friendly to her and she completely ignored them, reportedly. Not too bad for a bartender. Yeah, she's a social media influencer, so she makes a ton of money. I don't know. I haven't really gone on her social media specifically. I just seen clips from right-wing outlets, they'll post the clips. I haven't actually gone to her social media. I bet she has sponsors and things like that, and that's how she makes her $11 million, which is insane. How does a bartender suddenly have $11 million? Yeah. Well, much like Bernie Sanders, he actually came under fire during the RFK appointment. Remember, RFK pointed out, he goes, look, you're taking, I think it was $2 million or something from the pharmaceutical industry. And he goes, of course, you're not going to be critical of the pharmaceutical industry because they're paying you money, and that's essentially what RFK Jr. said during his appointment. And, Bernie Sanders, he was like, I take great issue with that. And they're actually small donations from doctors and nurses, not the pharmaceutical industry. That's what Bernie Sanders said, which is total bogus. But yes, no. So Bernie Sanders, he says this, but he's beholden to the pharmaceutical industry, just like Lindsey Graham is beholden to the military industrial complex. You've got Honeywell, Boeing, these people who make the tanks, the train, or the tanks and the guns and things like that. Republicans, I call them the cowboys, and then there's the Yankees, the finance side of it. They're the finance bros, or the finance people in New York, right, where you've got the Hillary Clintons, the Barack Obamas, those types of people. And then you've got, sorry, excuse me, yawning. I need more of this. Then you've got, on the right side, the cowboys, where they are military industrial complex, and they're getting funded by those people. So you've got two factions of the establishment, and AOC is probably a part, or I know she's a part of that as well. She's just got nonprofits who are contributing to her and are backing her, and that's how she gets the $11 million. She's worth $11 million. Smash that like button, share this out with your friends. We're going to be right back. Woo! Good morning. This is the last segment of the show, and we were talking about Representative AOC. Yeah, so she looks like she's going to be the Democrat leader, and Senator John Kennedy goes, let her speak. She's the reason why there's shampoo bottle directions, or directions on shampoo bottles, and I think it was absolutely hilarious. Zinger by Senator John Kennedy. He was on with Sean Hannity. Now, I'm not saying to take her seriously as a person, okay, because she is just so silly, okay? But however, as mentioned, while social media influencer is her main occupation, I told you that she has a side hustle as a congresswoman, okay? We were talking in the comments section on YouTube. She's worth $11 million. And unlike what AOC says, she says, down with corporate leaders, down with the corporate rich, tax the rich, right? She's taken money from people too. She's taken money from these corporate. I haven't gone on her social media. I'm sure she's got some sort of like branding deals and things like that. Because remember, her first gig is her main gig as social media influencer. Her side as a hustle as member of Congress, but as a member of Congress, she probably also gets all kinds of campaign donations and things funneled into her campaign coffers from nonprofit organizations. We know Bernie Sanders, he had during the RFK appointment, RFK kind of held his feet to the fire there, and he said, hey, you actually took $2 million from the pharmaceutical industry. And he goes, oh, no, they were all small donations. Whatever, man. You're just like Lindsey Graham, who takes money from the military industrial complex. You're just taking it from the pharmaceutical industry. If I looked into AOC's, I would imagine it's a lot of immigration nonprofits, organizations that are contributing to her campaigns. Like I said, her side hustle is being a member of Congress. When she starts to give speeches outside of her district, that is a sign. So she was in, I think, Arizona or something like that with Bernie Sanders. That's a sign you want to run for higher office. So she might be trying to make a run for president. She's touring America. She's trying to get her fellow low information Democrat progressive friends to fight harder or to fart harder against President Donald Trump. You guys remember she went on this Fight the Oligarchy tour with Bernie Sanders. And who knows, Bernie Sanders might be her running mate. AOC and Bernie Sanders, I don't know, but she's trying to get the progressives, the low information voters, to fart harder against Donald Trump. I'll never forget that. She accidentally flubbed up and she said fart instead of fight, which I thought was funny. The Democrat Party is the most unpopular, most uncool it's ever been. They're irrelevant, okay, to the culture. And they couldn't be more irrelevant, and they've been more irrelevant now than they have been in decades. So the only person who could turn that around, I think, if this is what's going on in their head, the only person who could turn this around would be a social media influencer, somebody that the culture trusts, the internet culture trusts. And, Donald Trump did a great job with the podcast, the alternative media, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, right? This is all alternative media stuff. And he did a great job getting on social media. And this just goes to show you legacy media is largely irrelevant, just like the Democrat Party. But the Democrat Party tried so hard to get MSNBC, CNN to get Kamala Harris across the finish line, and people aren't on those platforms anymore. And AOC, she's on like Twitch or whatever, she streams Twitch, and she's a social media influencer. And they're hoping that AOC can reach the low information voters on social media. And, the establishment will claim Democrats need to dial back the woke insanity and, focus on Marxist social issues that have rendered that are completely toxic, like we talked about earlier in the show. Marxism is toxic. Karl Marx was a terrible guy. And, the establishment, they're going to, try to probably pull back AOC, but they're just going to go all for it. AOC, your Tim Walz's, they didn't understand that, hey, woke is not going to work. The woke insanity is not going to work. That's why you lost in the 2024 election. But they're going to double down on this, your AOCs. And the establishment, they're going to try to probably pull back that Democrat part, because there's a faction within the Democrat Party as well, where they are, pro-Marxism, pro-woke ideology, and the establishment says that's not going to win us any elections. And the Democrat Party, or the AOC party, right, doesn't care. The Progressive Party doesn't care about that, and they're just going to double down. So that's the show today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We talked about the ISU professor, Andrew Hartman. He wrote the book, Karl Marx In America. We talked about Karl Marx, who he was, and the true history behind Karl Marx. We also talked about Scott Jennings and the hypocrisy coming from the left, where they redefined the word recession just a couple of years ago to try to make Joe Biden look better. And then we have, of course, the Democrat leader, Jasmine Crockett, doing the very racist thing, demanding that we import a group of second-class citizens to do unskilled labor because she doesn't want to do it, which is just crazy, because that's what they did in the 1800s. The Democrat Party, the Republicans fought them. We're fighting them now. All right, you guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. I love you. We're going to be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., bright and early. Find me on YouTube, subscribe. I'll talk to you later.